Regardless of the role that you play, vision is a very fundamental part of the game that everybody needs to know. My goal with this video is that hopefully, after watching, you'll be able to ward less in the future, but in the process gain more value through better wards. There are many different places on the map that you can look to place a ward, but that's not going to be the focus of this video. The focus of this video is specifically on the timings of when you are warding, not where they are. This video is going to be split into 4 different parts. The first is why overwarding is a problem. Second, what makes a bad ward timing. Third, what makes a good ward timing. And lastly, I'll show some example scenarios so that you can practice your new knowledge of ward timings. There are many reasons that overwarding is a problem. One of them is because of vision score. Once Riot implemented vision score, people started to ward more, thinking that, oh, if I hit a higher vision score, then I'm gaining more value out of my wards. But that's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes a lower vision score may have actually been better. Another reason is because people don't understand what happens whenever you do waste a ward, because it's not just an immediate effect whenever you screw it up. It's going to affect you later on when you don't have that ward when you needed it. Even if someone starts to see the consequences of poor warding, they may misinterpret it. They may think, oh, I just need more wards, and so they'll begin to compensate with control ward purchases, which is only going to push back their mythic and give them vision that they didn't actually need or could have covered with their normal trinket if they hadn't messed up prior. Let's talk about the duration of trinkets. So, depending at the time of the game, whether it's at the very beginning or the very end, it can range. So at the start of the game, when everyone's level 1, it's going to be 1.5 minutes that the ward lasts. At the very end of the game, or at least close to it, when everyone is level 18, roughly, then it'll last 2 minutes. However, the problem comes from the recharge time. At level 1, it's 4 minutes, and very, very late game, it's going to be 2 minutes. Technically, item haste can impact it a little bit, but it's so insignificant that I'm not even going to bring it up in this video. Notice that only until the very end of the game is the recharge time the same as the duration of the vision that you're being provided, and that's assuming that it wasn't cleared. If it does get cleared, not only are you losing the vision, but you're also giving the opponent free gold because they're getting the gold off the trinket kill, as well as XP. The most common response that I get when coaching or just talking to people in general for why they overward is that they didn't want to sit on 2 charges. Sitting on 2 charges shouldn't by default be an issue though. You wouldn't think the same way with, for an example, an ability that has a cooldown. You wouldn't say, oh, I want to get the cooldown started, so I'm going to go ahead and use it randomly. No. There's no reason to use the ward unless you actually need the vision. Because if someone does show up, then you'll have 2 wards that you can use, so you'll be extra protected than if you just had 1 because you burned a random one. Now we can get into what makes a bad ward timing. The simplest indicator that you can hold onto your ward is if you know where everybody is on the map. Either they're visible through other wards, maybe turret, etc., or they're dead. If you know they're dead, then of course they can't be anywhere near you. You also shouldn't be warding if you're not going to be in a risky position in the future. For example, if you plan to recall, especially if it's a cheater recall, you should not be warding. Or if you're going for a roam, this can apply for other roles as well, whether you're mid, support, whatever. If you're going for a roam, you don't need to ward your lane brush. Now you may go for a deep ward, that you could potentially do depending on what's happening in the game, but you don't need to use any kind of defensive ward when you're not going to be there. If you're too healthy to die, you probably don't need a ward. If you're full HP and the opponent cannot dive you because you're under turret, just chilling with abilities up, you don't need to ward. If the opponent doesn't have enough mobility to catch you and you're not going to have to burn some form of significant cooldown in order to get away, then you probably don't need the ward either. A very common mistake, especially with control wards, is placing a ward that you can't protect. If you're going for a ward and you know the enemy jungler is nearby, they're just going to red trinket it anyway, then you may as well not ward, because it's not going to do anything for you. Same thing with placing a control ward. If you're behind, or if you don't have a very specific purpose for the control ward, it's just going to get killed, you give them extra gold, and then you don't really gain any value from it at all. Good ward timings just reverse the reasons for the bad wards. If you don't have vision of enemies, and you don't have teammates that are able to back you up, assuming they do show up, that's a great time to ward. If you're going to be pushing up in the near future, let's say 15 to 20 seconds, as you're doing some kind of slow push, or you're setting up a wave to go to an objective fight, whatever it may be, that's likely going to be a good time to ward, again, assuming that you don't know where everyone is. If you're not high HP, but you're not in a position where you want to recall yet, that's going to be a great time to ward, assuming that you can ward deep enough to where it has meaning. If you're going to be able to protect the ward, or it's not going to be immediately cleared, then that's likely going to be a timing that is going to be more useful. But again, make sure that there's an actual purpose for it and you're not just doing it because it'll last a long time. Another good timing to ward is if you're looking for a very specific pick before any kind of fight, really. If you just see a fed opponent and you're like, okay, we're going to get this pick and then we can transform it into either an objective or some other form of advantage, then that's going to be a great time to ward. Now for the fun part, we can pull out some scenarios and see if you truly understand when you should and should not be warding. For the first example, we'll be watching the set. He's playing into a Fiora. The Fiora shows almost as soon as the minions get into lane. There she is. Enemy bot lane's a little bit late to show. So the set likely is assuming that the enemy jungle, the Bel'Veth, is starting bot side. Looking for a slow push. He ends up crashing the second wave and goes for a ward. Was that ward good or bad? The correct answer is that the ward was good, because he does not have vision of Bel'Veth yet, but he has a reason to believe that the Bel'Veth is likely topside, so he's going to look to ward in between the waves so that he's not missing any minions, and he'll be prepared if she does decide to gank. For this example, we'll be watching the Maokai. His jungler starts bot side, Nasus shows immediately topside, so he's likely assuming that the Zac is starting his bot side. The Maokai looks for a slow push into eventually clearing the third wave. His Hecarim decides to go for an invade, so he follows up, and they get a triple kill. Great. After this point, he crashes the wave and looks for a recall. He drops a ward as he's running out. Was that ward good? That ward was not good because he's already leaving the lane anyway, so there's no reason to have that vision. For the final example, we'll be watching the Shen. Shen ends up dying to this Garen here in a moment. And after that, he's thinking about his play upon respawn. Trundle shows here. Garen is still visible, Syndra is visible mid lane, and his Tristana is getting dove. So he decides to ult, try to help Tristana, chase Senna a little bit, and wards the brush on his way out. Is that ward good? That ward is bad because he already had plenty of vision of where everybody was, so there's no way Tristana's dying, but yet he still placed it. Worst case scenario, he could even hit the plant if he was really that concerned about where Trundle was. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching the entire video, and see you next time. Peace!